love that movie. I can watch it anytime.
Chevy Chase, Steve Martin, Martin Short. How could you go wrong?
Isn't there a burning bush too?
Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
of course.
Yeah. So I mean,
the bush
How
and
can
the
you go wrong?
Invisible Man.
Yeah. Farley.
There's just so many good parts, and even when they break into the song where little Nettie sings.
yeah, another quotable
It's a
one.
fucking great movie.
It's a good one.
All right. What do you got to top
I also
that?
saw that in the theater.
Yeah, I did too. I got to go see it at the Dollar Theater.
Nice.
This was another, to kind of go back to what I was saying, this was those movies that came out at the Dollar Theater that I went and saw. And then saw them on like Cinemax and HBO and everything like that.
Right after they come out.
Yeah, that's the theme. I remember it. Just being like, wow.
Dude, I love the old HBO one with, it's kind of in the time I grew up in like the 90s. There were all these little dots. They were like little circles, and then it kind of zoomed out, and they were lights, and then it formed the HBO logo.
Yeah, just like the Batman logo from 1989.
Yes. Where you're zooming with the opening credits, where you're going around it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Another 80s movie, but we're not
in 89.
We're not in 89 yet.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Let's come back to
You guys have deviated.
let's come back to 1982 here. Before all this stuff's going around, I want to keep with some of the technical stuff here, just to let you know some of the. I might throw a little more than just 3 in here, just to kind of show you some of the technical stuff that's coming out around this time. So, towards the end of the year, you got Secret of Nymph and the last Unicorn animated movies coming out. At the same time, we have The Thing, which is doing great practical effects that you guys have talked about. And towards the end of the year, you have Dark Crystal.
Yep. Yes.
Now, the Dark Crystal is going to be a lot of those practical effects in there. And that's going to set the stage for The Labyrinth that's going to come out later.
In what year?
Wasn't Henson involved in that?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Frank Oz, I believe, directed it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Which the new series is coming out.
And that's what I wanted to tie back in. Even nowadays, we're circling back to this Dark Crystal series that's coming out on Netflix here soon.
Yeah.
And another one of the great ones that gets a lot of credit now, but at the time didn't. And it, to me, had a lot of great practical effects, visual effects, Blade Runner.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And Blade Runner is a cult classic. People are going to love that. That also had a sequel come out in 2017 here. So also tying in now. But just one of the last movies where you're getting true in-camera optical effects. And there is a great documentary on that.
But there's also a great band that's named after.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of like the times we're living in.
Isn't it called Dangerous
Dangerous
Days?
Days,
Don't they do this theme
Wait,
song?
I have
us?
a couple candles.
Hey,
Yeah.
Those are
Dangerous
good
Days.
guys. You know, I really like those guys. They're
Pretty
swell.
good band.
Yeah. I enjoyed their music.
It's pretty
So-
Isn't one of them a geologist?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. He rocks.
I mean, I think I saw them at the Mariner, and they rocked my fucking socks off.
Well, yeah, knocked your rocks off.
Yeah, something. Oh,
So, in addition to a couple other movies I'll point out that are in 82, so we're coming out of the 70s, and I always feel that when you come out of a decade, there's a little bit of a lingering taste when you're in when you're in like, you know, when you're in 1990, you're still coming out of the 80s. When you're in 1980, you're still coming out of the 70s. But we're really pushing some boundaries here with the special effects, not the visual effects, special effects, stuff in camera, physical effects here. You got things like the Dark Crystal. You got things like Blade Runner with sets and mats and in-house optical effects. Things like The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing.
Absolutely.
With help me out here,
Rob Bottin.
Rob Bottin's practical effects. So yeah, 1982. I'm trying to say what I'm saying. I'm saying that things are picking up here in the beginning of the 80s.
Yes.
And we're getting to things that are allowed to happen in 85, 86,
Because they
and
can physically
87.
see those things now. They can do them.
And
better
computer
than they could in the
effects are
70s,
starting to evolve. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So we get to 87.
That's right. So, kind of staying, I heard somebody, we were talking about Mel Brooks, the Elephant Man, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to go with Spaceballs.
Oh,
One of my got to be in my top 10.
Yes.
Just a great
Yes.
movie. Another one of those super quotable, kind of in the same vein of Three Amigos almost.
We ain't
as far
found
as that
shit.
goes. That's right.
we ain't found shit. Best part of the whole movie. Find anything yet? Yeah, dude. Fucking Mel Brooks was the king of offense, I guess,
Yes.
at that time. And that was the pinnacle of something for us, that we all had Star Wars.
Absolutely.
And we had all, we had all those space opera movies, and they fucking turned it upside down and made it awesome.
Right, one of those first parodies that are coming out at the time.
Well,
And he really
a really parody of a movie, because all those movies that he made, like History of the World, which was amazing as well. Even Blazing Saddles,
Young Frankenstein,
absolutely. But I mean, it was just, here's the subject matter,
A
you
genre.
said,
Let's
just
have fun.
just flip it upside down. Let's have some fun with
Dot
There's a
Matrix.
genre, I feel, yeah.
Barf. God.
Oh man, I think that movie is it's definitely in my background, I guess, and I think that might be why I always associate RVs with spaceships, because I think minivans and RVs are cool because it's like a spaceship. Like you're in there, you got all these knobs and switches, and you're driving around, and you got the door shut, and you're locked in, and of course they fly around their Winnebago. And
Yes.
I actually
Lone
saw
Star.
this movie in the theater, and there was a tornado outside the
Oh,
theater.
my goodness.
And the power went out for like, I don't know,
God.
2 or 3 minutes.
I've seen
Then
it
came
twice
back
now.
on.
I saw it whenever they re-released it again.
Oh, in the
not too
theater,
long
you
ago.
mean?
Yeah, I
Yes.
saw it whenever I was a kid, and then I had to go see it again. We took the whole family. Like,
Nice.
there was like 18 of us, or more like 8.
Continuing in that vein, just because 87 was it's a really well-rounded year.
Yes.
There's a lot of really good movies that came out. But staying in that comedy vein,
some good people that came out that year too.
Good Morning Vietnam,
Oh,
which is kind of a comedy drama.
Dramedy?
Yeah.
It was one of the very first of Robin Williams turns into
more,
he had done some dramas before that, of
Sure,
course.
sure.
Yeah,
But a more
this one-
straight-laced
Yeah, this
role,
one was
yeah.
more. It was just a great movie
But
too.
still Robin Williams, still pushing the boundaries of whatever it was. That's just always the character he plays.
yeah.
But a great movie. And then, I don't know, I feel like we haven't really, you talked about The Thing. Prince of Darkness came out this year. I'm not going to talk about that. We've beat that to death.
Yeah.
Check it out in the archives.
But in the horror vein, Hellraiser came out.
Ooh, that first Hellraiser movie is freaky, dude.
Absolutely.
It's not scary to me. Like,
It's just unsettling.
Movies don't
It's-
scare
exactly.
me. It's just weird.
It's just
And I think that's the point, though. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of like we always talk about the Lovecraftian.
Yes.
Where it's so odd.
Yeah,
You're like,
but it's just unusual.
Yeah,
The dude sitting in the fucking.
but it again spawned how many movies? You know,
Hellraiser 54.
yeah.
I think there's
Hellraiser
like
in
5 or
space.
6
5
now.
or 6 now.
Yeah. Then they got the new one that looks like a Cabbage Patch Kid.
I'm not totally familiar with that one.
Yeah, it's like Hellbound or something.
And they've talked
that
about
was part
rebooting-
two. Ooh, that was part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've talked about rebooting that for years. Even Clive Barker's tried to maybe do it again.
A great idea, completely different. I feel that sometimes there's
Do
certain,
something else.
Yeah. I mean, start over, but
Maybe those
leave
things
them the
just
way
make
they
me
are.
uncomfortable. The Cenobites and stuff. They
Yeah.
just.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll read about them and stuff and look at them, but fuck, man, that's just weird.
when they got
Well,
to
Clive
this,
Barker's got that bind, though.
yeah, it's like that SM, like the sexual, like leather, and then violence. I don't know. It just makes me.
when one of the Cenobites in one of the movies got to where he had CDs implanted in him,
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
DJ,
That's like the
and he
third
would
one.
throw those. I was like, what the
Yeah,
fuck?
I
is
think,
that?
I think I only watched Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2.
Yeah.
That's
the second one is cool.
The second one's pretty good.
And the second one's
It's
the
a
bad,
take on.
But the first one,
in my opinion. But it started. It started the.
Yeah.
first one, yeah, definitely
Yeah.
seminal.
Got you into some weird stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought we should throw some horror in there, a little more.
Yeah.
If,
So over
if
to
we
you.
want to,
Oh, go ahead.
if we want to stay, I mean, we can circle back to 1982 here real quick. If we want to stay with the horror and the special effects thing. Now, this one didn't do great at the time, but Wes Craven directed Swamp Thing, released in 1982. Andrea Barbeau.
Adrian
Barbeau.
Don't you mess that name up.
Sorry, I'm familiar. There is a cut of this movie where you can see her boobies full on.
Wow.
It came
What
out-
movie you can't
She was
see.
married to John Carpenter.
Yeah.
And also played the voice of
The computer in the
Wizard
thing.
Chimp,
Yeah.
Yeah. She was a big thing back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Still.
Is she in the
got a
sequel
couple.
too, or no?
No. That was Heather Locklear.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's different.
But that guy was in a suit.
She was in Fall
you know?
Guy.
Yeah.
What was it called?
Fall Guy.
Fall
Lee
Guy.
Majors.
Oh boy. Oh, Lee Majors. Oh, nice.
You're talking 1982, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
As a Swamp, I mean, I've read a few Swamp Thing. I know Brock, you're a big Swamp Thing fan.
Of course.
the movie's not a great adaptation per se of,
it's so
but it
bad.
but it
I
does
love
have
the little pig guy though.
yeah
It's so fucking
Yeah.
bad. They're all bad.
and there's like lots of scenes where they're on the Louisiana
They're just
freaking
running.
the boat what are those
The half
Airboats.
half of the movie is Adrian Barbeau running, like going to get a Coke or some
well,
shit.
Of course, dude,
yeah,
if
with
you're going to
the
make a
gas
movie,
station.
With
did you
Adrian
not? They
Barbeau,
made a
yeah.
whole series called Baywatch of
Yeah.
just girls running on the beach.
in
mean,
red.
Yeah, I can
Drink
see.
Coke, drink Coke.
Yeah, and then the little
Coca-Cola.
kid that's running the store all by himself in that movie.
Yeah, yeah.
They're throwing
Right.
grenades at him, and he's like, "It's fucking
That's
shitty."
terrible.
But it's important to remember that they tried,
Yeah.
and they did put a man in a suit. They did put a man in the suit.
They get a gold star for that one.
Well, Wes Craven wrote, I believe, and directed it, and
Yeah.
it's in '82. It's coming out there with all the other effects movies. They tried. They made
Yeah,
a sequel to it, I believe, '89. That came out,
it was a man in a suit at that point, but it's still,
and that ties back with what's going on now. There's a Swamp Thing TV series. They've tried to get him in movies for years.
Yeah,
but
yeah. He's the only character in any comics that has had a comic in production, a TV show in production, and a movie in production, and a cartoon in production at the exact same time.
Other
There's-
than Batman, maybe.
Nope,
No.
not at the same time.
Well, I mean, there was an animated series while they're developing a sequel to Batman
No,
Returns.
production, release, everything. Like Swamp Thing is
Like
the
it
only
was,
one to
it
do
was coming. Everything was converging at the same
They
time.
must
And
have planned it that way.
That was Swamp Thing 2.
Yeah, they must have
Yeah.
planned that.
because of the success of Swamp Thing.
Yeah,
Right.
because it was so great. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they're trying to sell toys, comics, and
Well,
the
they didn't
animated
have any
series.
Swamp Thing toys until
Yeah.
like the 90s.
It
and
really
fucking sucked.
yeah. Well, it wasn't a push like it is.
No.
You know, like
No,
it really
no.
became in the 90s, 2000s.
Yeah.
That's
After the
when it-
Turtles.
Yeah.
Because that's what they were.
Yeah.
That's why the pizza's there is to sell it,
Well, and He-Man, really,
Yeah.
I guess.
and
in
that
the
was all.
80s.
Yeah, and that was
Yeah.
all created to sell the toys.
Yeah.
and that became its own thing. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
let me keep going here in '82. Just to throw out some other things in the genre field, you got with the horror and Swamp Things, got the effects and stuff. Creep Show.
Yes.
Creep Show is out in '82. The first Creep Show, literally, basically an EC comic on the screen. Stephen King's in there. George Romero
He
is
directed it.
Yeah.
directing it. Yep.
Yep.
You got Ted Danson. My favorite one is the Crate.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's my
yes.
favorite little
You know
story.
who else is in that movie too? Adrian Barbeau.
Right. I knew
Bringing
you were
it back.
Yep. Thank
Dramatic.
You. Thank you.
And just a real
Pause.
quick, not to turn it back to 1987, but that's when Creep Show 2 came out.
Yep.
Yep. And that one actually has my favorite of all the Creep Show segments,
Raft.
The Raft. Thank
Yes.
you, Brock.
Yes.
Love The Raft. When I first saw it, my friend had a VHS, tape copy of this movie, and I believe I just stole it from him because I love The Raft so much. I just have it and watch The Raft all the time. I love
Yeah.
that one. It was so weird. and out of
Tyson's
place.
untrustworthy.
Yeah.
Well,
you
no,
know
I-
what? You skipped me, you son of a bitch. 'cause
No, I
I'm
know.
trying-
I circled back.
Okay, okay.
He
Yeah.
was playing Uno. He threw down the reverse card.
Yeah.
son of a bitch.
We went this way. So
Draw 4.
I'm saying 82. I'm sticking with kind of the genre that we're in. You got the Creep Show with the horror. Another really cool one, Poltergeist.
That was a great movie. Toby Hooper.
Toby Hooper direct.
The
We all,
effects
but
in that one are
was a great
still
movie.
incredible.
yeah,
to
see,
this day.
staying with the special effects. In the end, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Poltergeist, when the house actually spins into oblivion or whatever, into the hole, they had this model home and they had wires on it and they had guys pull it in the opposite direction to make it spin, and they just blasted it with shotguns with buckshot in it.
And I think also the skeletons in there too were real.
Supposedly the skeletons were real.
Well, obviously, you've probably seen the documentary about those movies and the little girl
Right.
and all
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
cursed,
yeah,
supposedly,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But the special effects at the time were awesome. I love this movie because it's a PG horror movie that you don't get a lot anymore.
Yeah. Well, it was scary as fuck.
Did you guys see the new one?
With Sam Rockwell,
Oh, it was the most terrible thing.
it wasn't the most terrible.
No, it
thing,
was
but
the most
It
terrible.
was like
Since I was
agree
at a
with you.
drive-in,
Yeah.
and you know how they do 2 movies? I don't know what we watched the first time. Jurassic World.
Ah.
And
that was a cool one.
the next movie was like Pitch Perfect. I'm like, I'm not, no. And I was like, we were all together, the whole fam, and I'm like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah,
so
I'm
we
gonna
drove
take a-
over to the other one and we watched Poltergeist. And as soon as he pulls that drone out, I'm like, well, here's what's going to happen, kids. And then it happened. They're like, what? How'd you know? And not one of my children were scared, dude. And they were like,
it was
10.
so bland. It was just vanilla pudding.
And it's sad because that's going to be their recollection of Poltergeist because they're not going to watch the 1982 movie.
I've showed